Happy Friday to you, degenerates, and welcome to a very special edition of the Sharp Action Report. That's right, we are coming to you for UFC Vegas 76. Had to squeeze an extra little show in there for you. We've got some great info, and we've got an awesome guest here today. You may know him from the UFC's On the Line. You may know him from the Gambler's Perspective, hosted over on UFC Fight Pass. They know him as Ace, Vegas runner, Gianni the Greek, many names, many accolades, but he always finds time for us. Our guy. What's going on, Gianni? How you doing today?
Never better, never better. God bless America. 4th of July. I'm having technical issues. There's no internet anywhere around my house area, the whole development, no lie. So that's why I'm having to do it from the car. But what matters most is we do have information to share. And you forgot to add also from the Dana White Contenders Series. Now, you may say I want to forget that because of last summer, but it was like 3 or 4 seasons cumulative. So you got to throw that in there. Now, there's one coming up, a few months from now. So I don't know if I've got fired. We're going to find out pretty soon. We'll figure that out soon enough. But first, this is the calm before the storm, because next week is International Fight Week, the big 290 card. So here's where you could find some value, because I already see odds makers and bookmakers looking ahead. You're already seeing some crazy line moves. Compliments of Andy Gambis over there on UFC 290. So, yeah, first up, this one is Saturday night. So let's see if we can make some money.
I'm pumped up. That's my bad, Gianni. I will definitely make sure we add Dana White's Contender
I was kidding. I thought you thought it was something I want to forget.
No, we know you got another shot to come up and get back on track. New season right around the corner. I can't wait. But everybody, make sure, if you're not already following our guy, make sure you do. But of course, he's digging deep for us today. No internet, in the car, still dedicated enough to come on the show. So make sure you show our guy Gianni some love today. We're going to just run through UFC Vegas 76 top to bottom. We've already broken down all these fights, so we're really going to be grateful for any info you've got for us on these spots here. It looks like the first fight of the evening, they shifted the card around a little bit. We're starting off with Alexander Romanov and Blagoy Ivanov. I haven't done my undefeated post weigh-in show yet, Gianni, so we'll be talking about all this stuff there in just a couple of hours. But Alexander Romanov did not get back in shape for this fight. He came up on the scale today looking like a bowl full of spoiled milk again, and that did not go well for him last time against Volkov. I can't shake the feeling that this is still a big step down. Blagoy Ivanov is kind of a middle-of-the-road heavyweight in the UFC. He's older. I kind of feel like it's Romanov or pass, but at the same time, I can't trust the guy if he's not even going to get in his shape for this fight. What do you make of this first fight of the night?
It appears that way. And more importantly, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we already know there's a randomness to the heavyweight fights. They could end in a split second, regardless of how it may match up. They're still heavyweights. And why I say that is because this one seems to be the narrative that it's going over, because you have a Blagoy who is a heavyweight, but has gone to every decision that he's fought in the UFC. And I think because of that, you're going to get a bias towards the betting line that may offer up some value. And that's exactly what this is offering us. If you look towards the under at 2.5, giving you plus money on a heavyweight fight. You nailed it. Romanov coming in off back-to-back losses, having been finished, and then not being in weight. You can't lay chalk in that situation. You're just guessing at that point, hoping to be the product of good luck, that he goes out there and does what his at least history has shown, that he's the better guy and could win this fight. But what we've seen in recent thus shouldn't give you any confidence that you want to lay near 2-1 on him. So again, it's not a spot where you want to pick the winner and predict the outcome. You need to find the inefficiency, and that's what I think the under gives us. Because pre-UFC, if you look at Blagoy, sure, he's not a finisher, but he's around that 44% finishing rate, which isn't the worst. And with Romanov, he is above that heavyweight average. Factor in what we know the history of heavyweights in the UFC, And I just think if you're getting plus money, it's the way to look. For me, I'm betting the under. I'm telling you that now. I'll have an under 2.5 ticket in my pocket. It's just a matter of how much plus money I'll be able to get managed on it.
I like that look there. I really do. It's a spot where, heavyweight over 1.5. So we see those be pretty successful. But once you get to 2.5, fight doesn't go the distance. That's where I'm a little bit more interested. And like you mentioned, at plus money, if Romanov does what he can do, he takes everybody out in the first round. So I don't mind that. I don't mind that one bit.
And he's out of shape. Who says he won't get finished? Exactly. Who says he won't get finished?
Exactly. I love getting both sides of a violence bet there. Good look for the first fight of the night. We're not picking sides here. I love it. Next up, UFC newcomer Ivana Petrovic, 6-0, undefeated, taking on Luana Carolina. I'm a little nervous, Gianni. We've got a lot of people in the community betting Carolina. I stick to my guns. I stick to my research. I try not to let, the horde of people on the same side as me scare me, but I'm a little nervous. I don't like it when everybody's all on the same underdog. I thought I was going to be sneaky backing Carolina. She's someone I've found value in before, and I think this is just maybe a bit too much for Ivana. She's very, very raw in the striking department, and Carolina's actually got really solid takedown defense, 73%. She's proven in the UFC, and if she can keep this fight standing, her edge is massive. I'm very curious what you've got to say on this fight because the line hasn't budged, so very interested to see what you think.
Not much movement. I will keep this so simple. I looked at a Carolina side, I think like everyone else, and the reason is this. You're getting her at plus money, and she's a 500 fighter. Like, you don't want to bet those fighters. She's already shown you her history. So you never want to bet her in the favorite position. Even if she looks like she's in a spot that she should win, her history has shown that's not advantageous. Like, she doesn't win at a high enough clip that you want to be laying chalk with her ever. But if she's getting plus money, you have to take a look at her because, again, she's close to a 500 fighter in that spot. She's 3-3 in the UFC. She's 2-3 as a dog. But more importantly, the market's priced her right. Her average closing line is where the implied win probability is 39%. She's won 40%. So she's outperformed the betting market by 1%, the closing line. So they have her pegged pretty well. I think if I'm going to bet this, I'm forced to bet Carolina because even though this is for Petrovic to come in, look good, get the win, get some confidence, start building and improve each and every fight, you're speculating. She's fought opponents that have a combined 21 fights. And when you're speculating, you're going further out on the risk curve. And when you're going further out on the risk curve, you need a better return for your investment. And she's not offering that at minus 200. So I'm willing to speculate with anyone else. But we can't do that if we're going to be laying chalk to speculate. That's the problem I have here. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation for sure.
Okay. All right. I love to hear that. At least makes me feel a little better. I do have to point out real quick before we move on to the next show. My guy Nasty Nate in the chat has a sharp set of eyes on him. Loving the Red Sox cap today, Gianni. Is there anything you can tell me about that?
No. It's not a side for tonight or this weekend. No. Nothing at all. I promise you. It just was the hat in the closet that I had blue on. I promise. No
Every
hint.
once in a while. I know you.
But
like
I did bet the New York Giants under 8 wins. You could lay up the minus 125 comfortably. The worst you'll get is a push out of that. So New York Giants under 8 wins. And if you want to take a flyer on Georgia Bulldogs, they're going to win the SEC, but they're only giving you even money. So maybe both 2 units on them and throw a
That internet raising its ugly head. Folks, just so you know, Yanni's coming to us from his car because the internet went out in his entire area right now. So we seem to have frozen up here just a second. Let's see if we can get him back. Yanni's in the middle of throwing us some gold in the college football region here. Let me text him real quick. There he goes. All right, we're going to remove that one. There we go.
Backups, baby. Don't worry about that.
Oh, look at you. He's a professional.
We've got multiple phones, dude. We do this for real. We have nothing to worry about. We have laptops. We're fine. We're fine.
Excuse me. This man is smooth like butter. Let's go.
Excuse me for the break. So tell me where I left off. I smoked weed as a child, so a lot of times I have my short-term memory maybe a little not as good as it could be.
We got the Georgia Bulldogs play and we got the under 8.5.
But then it's even money. You don't really want to lock up money that long at even money, but it's a good positive EV bet. No one's going to beat them for that SEC. Let's go.
I like it. I like it. All right, third fight up here for UFC Vegas 76. Guram Katuteladze, biggest favorite on the card, taking on Elvis Brenner. Looks like to be a showcase spot for Guram, but he's gone to 2 splits so far in the UFC. A little bit of a break in competition. Elvis looked great in his UFC debut. I got to kind of leave this one alone, Gianni, unless we think he's going to come in here and knock Elvis out, which definitely could happen. But at the UFC level, Guram hasn't quite been able to find that finish recently. So I'm probably off it. I'm picking my guy Guram, but I'm just going to watch this fight. What do you think on this one?
I could not agree with you more. You can't, again, if you're betting Guram, you're just betting the outcome. Like, you're predicting he's going to win this fight. He's the better fighter. You're not getting line value there because where's the margin going to be? And we've already seen Brenner defy probability in his last fight. He closed as a minus 460 underdog. You're supposed to win that fight 18% of the time. He defied it already. His pre-UFC record is against opponents that won 2/3 of their fights, 66%. And he's 6 years younger, and those fighters tend to win about 63, 64% of the time. There are trends to like on the Brenner side. The negative is you can't defy probability forever. Like I say, there's someone right now that just hit a number on roulette and got paid 35-1 and is extremely happy. But it's 38-1. So if he doesn't pick up his chips and leave, he's going to end up losing that money back because you can't keep getting paid 35-1 on a 38-1 proposition and expect to walk out ahead. It's just not going to happen. That's the problem I have with Brenner, that he already defied probability, and it's tough to do that back to back. But it's a dog or pass situation. You're nuts laying the chalk.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you. I'm picking Guram, staying away from a bet. Next up, we got some more women's MMA. This is a good card for it, too. Yana Santos returns, taking on Carol Hossa. And I got to tell you, Gianni, I'm shaking in my boots here a little bit. So the line opened up way wider. Carol Hossa is a big favorite. Money's been flooding in on Yana Santos all week. I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait until it crashes. I'm going to buy low. I'm going to take Carol Hossa as a favorite as soon as I get down as far as I can. And that's what I did. But I'll be honest with you, watching the face-offs, Carol did not look great on the scale today, and Yana Santos has a decent size advantage on her that I was not expecting. You know, UFC odds, we go based on those numbers. They're not always correct when it comes to the height and reach of these fighters. Yana's a decent bit bigger than I was expecting her to be when these two faced off. So I'm a little bit nervous with my Carol Hossa spot at this point. What do you make of this fight?
I agree with you 100%. I lean the Hossa side, and those are the factors that worry me. Coupled with the strength of schedule is definitely on the Santos side. And with Hossa, you're now like if I was getting her as an underdog, which isn't going to happen because she's continues to come in as a favorite. She's been favored 6 of her 7 fights, I believe. 7 of her 8 fights. I mean, she's constantly being favored, and she's slightly outperforming the betting market, but it's not as if she's offering you a ton of value. Here's the spot, though, because Santos has that name recognition, that I thought it would be an opportunity to back the Santos side. I mean, the Hossa side, excuse me. Because what we've seen from Santos is she's gotten married, she's starting a family, she's lost her last 2, the age that she's at, like the trajectory of her career seems to be towards that next step coming up. And with those fighters, though, if they're in that underdog role, again, you're going out on the risk curve, but at least you're getting some return. I want to bet Carol Hossa so much because I thought this was a great spot for her, and a spot where finally the market is going to give us a chance to get some plus EV, betting her as a favorite. But that's what worries me, those factors you touched on. If it drops a little more, I'm probably going to be on the Hossa side as well. Almost definite if it, gets to that 150 range, because I do think she warrants that. But again, it's women's MMA. It's highly probable it goes to the judges, and you're taking risk anytime you're laying chalk.
Absolutely. And that's, I missed I missed the minus 155. I was praying I was going to get down to 50 or 145, and it came back up to 65. So that's where I jumped in at minus 165 because it felt like it was going to steam back the other direction a bit. We'll see how that turns out here for me. Definitely a sketchy spot. I'm a little uncomfortable with it, but I think I've got the younger, better fighter that still has that upward trajectory. Hopefully she can make good on it for me. Next up, biggest squash match of the day. Joanderson Brito taking on UFC newcomer Weston Wilson. I mean, Brito in round one is like minus 200, Gianni. It's just a spot where nobody believes in this Weston Wilson guy. 16-7. He's a solid finisher, it looks like, but he's got that tall man defense. I'm with everyone else. I think Brito is going to handle him probably in the first round. I don't think there's much we can really do here because unless you're taking a shot on the dog, you're not getting a playable number anywhere.
You can't. You can't bet this fight. Anyone that wasted any of their time and their effort looking to bet this fight, completely wasted their time. Like the Brito side doesn't warrant it. You know, he's 2-1 in the UFC. He's only 1-1 as a favorite. His wins come against opponents who won 53% of their fights. It's not like he's had a tough strength of schedule. It's 50% overall. And he's now a 1,400 favorite. But when you dig into the Wilson side, we already know debut fighters lose more times than not. And when you look at his strength of schedule, cumulative, they don't even have a winning record overall. So, like, you can, it's not even worth taking a flyer. You're simply guessing at this point. And trying to look at data is a waste of time. Anytime a minus 800, 900, 1,200, on paper is always going to look so much better than the dog. Like, don't even waste your time looking at the data. It's the reason they're 4, 5, 6, 7, 800 is because they do look that much better on paper. The key is, can you find an inefficiency? Is maybe the market overreacting to a recency bias? Is there something along those lines that you could take advantage of? Otherwise, again, you're laying chalk, because we all do. There's an admission price when you're betting. We're all laying at least 4.5% on every, dollar we place as the hold. So there's an admission to place a wager. And why would I ever pay an admission to bet Wilson versus Brito? I don't want to take the favorite for damn sure. And even the dog doesn't tempt me at those prices. Like I said, roulette 35-1. You can't. 35-1 compared to 2. What's he going to give me? 3-1, 4-1? There's nothing in the data to make me want to take this young man, unfortunately. And if he goes out there and defies probability, God bless him. But for me, this ain't the kind of trade I get involved in.
I hear you. I think we can leave that one alone. Should be a bloodbath. Should be fun viewing. We don't need to bet on that one. Everybody, this is the Sharp Action Report. We're on Pub Sports Radio. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you give our guy Gianni the Greek a follow on social media. If you haven't already, you'll be seeing his face quite a bit on the UFC stuff coming up here in just a couple weeks. Kevin Lee returns against Rinat Fakhretdinov. Gianni, this is maybe maybe the top fight that I wanted to talk to you about this week because I absolutely love Kevin Lee. I thought this guy was running championship material. I really thought he was destined for a belt. I thought he was going to put it all together. And then he had injury stuff. He kind of fell apart. He went out and had the Eagle FC situation, finally works his way back, but he's fighting at 170 instead of at 155. That makes me nervous. Rinat is relatively new. He's got a nice looking Russian record, but we always kind of question those. How padded is it? We're not sure. Is he actually UFC caliber? We're still kind of not sure. His wins are over a Brian Battle who did nothing off his back for 15 minutes, and Andreas Michailidis, who's been cut by the organization and was dropping a weight class for the first time that night. This is a crazy spot for me. I see a lot of love for Rinat. I kind of leaned that way early myself. And over the course of the week, I'm kind of fitting the pieces of the puzzle together. And I'm kind of talking myself into a Kevin Lee bet. So at this point, I've stayed off of it because when I flip-flop like that, I try not to get involved. I don't want to second guess where I'm putting my money, but I'm leaning more towards the Kevin Lee side as we get closer to fight day. What have you seen on this one? And is there anything you can tell us?
Well, you're not seeing too much movement on the money line. You're seeing steam come in on the over, so it looks like judges are expected to get involved. Here's another spot with Rinat where you nailed it. Pre-UFC, you don't have much to go on. And here's what I always like to do. I like to, when their opponent pre-UFC has a solid record, I like to see what did they do after they fought him. Like, what did that guy who was actually 18-2 do after he fought Rinat? And if you look, and then he's 18-4, so he lost his last 2 fights, or he hasn't fought again, which you see a lot of times, like they're catching guys with decent records on their last fight at the ends of their careers, just padding that record. You're paying a premium for that nonsense. And I think that's the problem I have here. Again, for me, it's a Lee or pass situation. I don't want to sound like a broken record. And this is a spot where I will sprinkle a little something small on Lee because I will be at Apex and it'll be a fight. I just want to cheer the guy in. I'm going to, as a fan, I just think this price is a little bit ridiculous when I look at his strength of schedule. His opponents in the UFC had won 72% of their fights. In fact, that's what he lost to. Like, he's lost to elite guys. He doesn't lose to middle of the road guys overall. I'm saying all small sample size. Of course, you could find a bad night for anybody. And Renat's going to have to prove that he is at least able to beat a Kevin Lee who hasn't fought in the UFC in a couple of years. His only fight has been like a grappling or exhibition. And then with, what's his name over there in Russia, like he ended up winning, coming in off a win. That's the only problem I have with, I don't want to urge anyone to waste money on Lee, but I couldn't bet this favorite, man. I really couldn't.
I hear you. I've kind of cooled off on the favorite. I thought I was going to be laying the wood early. Can't get there. Can't do it. So if anything, I'm going to be with you. I'll be passing and cheering and giving.
Listen, especially since if it's favored to go to distance like this one is, and obviously sharp money is what it's reflecting, you got to be very cautious, man. Unlike any other sport, let me just share this with the viewers because I bet all markets. And here's the difference with MMA, unlike any other sport. In any other sport, whether it's a team sport or an individual sport, when it's over, I know whether I won or lost. When it's 0-0-0 on the clock, everyone in the stands know who won or lost. The players know who won or lost. No one could come in there and fuck it up for me. In MMA, not only could the ref fuck me by taking a point or not taking a point when he should have. But then when it's over, even if the box score reflects fighter A won, even if everyone in the arena thinks fighter A won, even if everyone watching around the world thinks fighter A won, if those 3 guys end up just disagreeing and there's a split decision, you end up losing a winning bet. That doesn't happen in other sports. So you have to be even more cautious and practice money management even more. And I'll take it a step further. There's been about 1.2 split decisions per event this year. You could expect 1 split decision at least per event. That's not even factoring in majority decisions. Go back years, it doesn't change. So this isn't not something new. This is something we have to constantly be dealing with. And that's why I always caution MMA bettors who are confident in betting aside in making sure that the market's inefficient and you're not just predicting the outcome because, more times than not, you get in trouble doing that because of those X factors like split decisions that you don't get in any other sport.
That's you love to see it, man. Every single week, it seems this year. Sal D'Amato from the rafters, baby.
Never fails.
He comes in every time. All right.
Dude, in tennis, when it's over, it's over. Sure, the ref could call a ball out that was in, but at least when it's over, we know who won the set and if the match is over. The ref can't come back and say, no. You know what? She won. That doesn't happen. But in MMA, that actually happens.
It's a crazy game we play. Next up, we got UFC newcomer Nursulton Ruziboev taking on Bruno Ferreira. And this is a spot that I've been struggling with all week, Gianni, because I thought Brunno was suspect coming. I thought he was suspect coming into the UFC in his first fight. He gets a mean KO over Gregory Rodriguez, and now this new kid comes in. People are picking through his Tapology record. He looks like maybe he's the fraud of the week coming in, but he's training at a good camp. He's tall, he's rangy, he's long, he's got a slick submission game on him, and now all the money is just pouring in on Brunno. This is there's like 2 or 3 of them, but this is like the recency bias spot of the week. We'll talk about the next one in just a minute, but I am so tempted to pull the trigger on the dog here, even though we don't know a lot about him. I love his frame for the weight class. I love what I've seen from his offensive skill set. And it's kind of like, as long as he doesn't get nuked in there in one shot, which is kind of the Brunno specialty, I think he's got a lot of advantages. I'm tempted to fade everybody here and go with the dog.
I'll tell you what, man, I like Ferreira in this spot. In fact, I bet Ferreira because I thought it was an opportunity to catch him, even though he's in the favorites role, before he gets valued in the market, because of the fact going into the Contender Series against Alou, it was obvious the market was aware of how good he was. Because if you look at Alou when he fought in May against Darren Stewart, he opened as a favorite. Like, it was a pick-em with Darren Stewart. So him going into the Contender Series and closing like he did, the market knew how good he was. And then he's almost a 3-1 dog, 2.5-1 dog against Rodriguez and gets the job done. And the way he got the job done, I don't think he's getting the credit he could ultimately deserve otherwise. And I think that's why you're catching him in a decent spot against a fighter, like you said, who, sure, he may be at a great camp and have the skill set, the tools, but going out there and doing it is a whole different thing. And if you haven't done it against that quality of opponent, I don't know if you can do it. It's like I can give you 10 books on the best 10 books on brain surgery, and you could tell me, dude, I spent the last 3 years reading them cover to cover. I could recite every single word. I'm still not going to let you cut me open. Like, you're going to still have to have that experience and have performed it with success for me to allow that. You having the skill set and the knowledge isn't enough. Like, you will have to have proved it through experience. And I just don't see that yet. That's why I laid the chalk with the head, and I think I made a good bet. The market where it sits, I'm not too unhappy. I'm glad I did it, and we'll find out whether I'm right or wrong. But I like the favorite in that spot, and I'm not one to jump out on favorites too often.
So here's my thing, Gianni. This thing opened up at a pick'em. If anybody got the -110, if anybody got the -120, on Brunno,
Nick.
Yeah, go Nick. Like, that's if you got the even money on Brunno, no problem. I can't stomach -220 though. You know what I mean? That's where I'm having.
No. I hear you. There is a point where eventually the EV's lost. I'm a big proponent of that, where just because both people will cash their ticket, it doesn't mean both made a good bet. One could have made an absolutely terrible bet and was the product of good luck. The one guy made a great bet and could always be the product of bad luck. So no, we're in agreement there that eventually the EV does get lost. But it's almost like with the Brady situation, where I had concluded Brady should be a favorite in that spot based on Madalena's strength of schedule. So when a bettor like Andy Gambis, who I know is going to influence the market, comes in on that side, I know I don't have time. I need to fire right away. I lean that way. Like, there's not time to dig for deeper confirmation. That line will be gone. But it doesn't mean that betting then Brady at even money would have been a terrible bet. Because again, if you have him priced that he should be a -150 favorite, there's still EV there. It's just less of it. So you got to maybe lower your bet is the smarter move than automatically. You shouldn't automatically pass, but it's a great point that you brought up. Take a step back when it moves that much, because the EV may be gone and you're now just hoping to cash a ticket because that guy's going to cash a ticket, but not because you placed a good bet.
Absolutely. And a shout out Andrew Gombus. If you guys, I'll tease you all here, the 125 live viewers we got, he's going to join us to break down next week's UFC 290 on Monday. That's going to be our guest.
There's guys in here like yourself that I respect a lot, and they deserve the light in this industry, man. A bunch of them. We had a guy on our show, Wiz. I hadn't even come across that guy. I didn't even know him. Because again, forgive me, I don't spend a lot of time online. It's like I'm an older generation and shit. And I'm like, there's so much talent. So yeah, anytime I get a chance to put some spotlight on these guys, I'll fucking do it, man. Excuse me, I'll freaking do it. Let's go. They need winners. We need some winners.
Absolutely. And you're good, Yanni. Don't even worry about it, man. We got an adult betting show here. Drop as many F-bombs as you'd like. Next up, Benoît Saint-Denis takes on Ismael Bonfim. And this is exactly the other spot I was talking about, Yanni. I've been staring so hard at this line all week because I was the leader of the charge on Ismael Bonfim against T-Rex. I was the guy standing in front of the market going, wrong guy's favored. Coin flip isn't enough. This man is the real deal. And they gave him a chinny, younger T-Rex who really just needs some seasoning. If he doesn't win in the first round, he's not winning the fight. That's what he is right now. He needed to go back to the drawing boards, get that experience, be able to go 15 minutes before we can trust him. Beautiful spot. Ismael Bonfim upsets the entire apple cart. And now he's a minus 350 favorite over Benoît Saint-Denis, a guy who is proven at the UFC level. Even though maybe that fight should have been stopped against Elijah Zaleski, he's shown that he's incredibly durable, and he's gotten wins on this stage before. I can understand making Ismael Bonfim the favorite. In fact, he should be. He should be a slight favorite in this spot. But it's gone so far. Again, I am so tempted on taking the shot on Benoît Saint-Denis at this spot. He's plus 260 as an underdog. And frankly, I feel like that's just disrespectful. What do you see on this one, Yanni?
I could not agree more. I'm actually going to end up probably fading Bonfim on Saturday. Listen, the kid's a stud, him and his brother. Like, we know their future is bright. But if you're not put under optimum conditions, anyone could perform below expectations. And I think in this spot, it sets up for that. Number one, we know he's coming off a fight, like you said, with T-Rex, which was different. Like, that was a pick'em fight, expected to be extremely competitive. And more importantly, he was coming off a Contender Series, which was the exact same way. Because even though, he opened as a favorite in the Contender Series, almost a 2-1 favorite, the market bet against that Bonfim. He went down to almost a pick'em, I believe, in that fight. It closed. With that said, now he's in that chalky spot, and it's not optimum. He's on short notice, number one. And here's what I could tell you. You go back a decade, and it just doesn't change. If you're on 10 days or less notice, those fighters lose 66% of the time. You're like, oh, 10 days, that's nothing. Of course they do. So guess what, though? Go a little further. Give them 30 days. Guys that are on 30 days or less, it's not much better. They lose 64% of the time. Like, it's not optimum to fight on short notice. And now you've already lost 10% of implied win probability from where he opened. He had to win 66% of the time. He's now got to win 76, closer to 80% of the time. Where's your margin? I don't see it. The only reason I'm not running in double fists on Saint-Denis is obvious. He needs to show me he could beat a UFC fighter that wins at the UFC level. And what I mean is, sure, he's 2-1 overall, but his wins come against opponents who are combined 0-2 in the UFC. They didn't beat anyone in the UFC. And his losses come against guys that are 88-3. So when he, against a step up, he didn't come through. And talent-wise, this may be a step up skill set. At least that's what the narrative is on the Bonfim brothers. So that's the only reason I'm not out there touting and pushing, this is a great dog, live dog. I think it's worth a bet. I think there's some EV, especially now that it moved. I think if you laid the opening number on Bonfim, not a bad bet. You did your job, especially where it's going to close. But I think where it stands now, it's one of those instances like we talked about last, where sure, there may have been some EV for you to get on Bonfim at the opener, but I don't think it exists anymore now. I think now it's on the underdog or not at all. So I'll have money on the dog. I'll have a little bit on him.
I like it. I'm planning on being there myself. I'm just waiting for this line to peak, Gianni. And we do have a question from the chat that I'm actually very curious to know. We've got my guy Dixon Sider saying the play is Benoît Saint-Denis plus 3.5 on the spread. Do you ever bet spreads in MMA? It's kind of a new thing. I haven't played with it much yet. Do you ever do that?
I love the question. I don't. Here's why. It's the same reason I don't do daily fantasy sports, because I know less than 1% of sports bettors win, just like 1% of day traders win. I know how hard it is to win. I finally, after 20 years of trying every possible way and gaining access to winning information. Anyway, make a long story short, finally found my edge, the 5 things that I look for to trade. And it's produced profit for me over the last decade, where it's changed my life, fortunately. With that said, I know how hard it is beating that. I'm not trying to find new things. For guys that are young and still haven't found their edge, have at it. You may find inefficiencies there because it's new. But for someone like myself, that I just rinse and repeat, man. My life, I've made it I rinse and repeat. I have signals that I trade. I bet the same amounts, whether I'm winning, whether I'm losing, that never changes. So that process for me is so past that I don't pick up new challenges. And that would be a new challenge, learning how to beat that. I don't know. I don't know how. Like, same reason with fantasy sports. I know guys are beating it. And in fact, I found out that you have an even better chance of fantasy sports, where 10% of players cash as opposed to 1% of players are actually positive lifetime earnings, sides and totals.
Okay, fair enough. Great question. Thank you very much. And,
yeah, good question.
Something to consider, I do feel like, in this kind of a spot, though, where if it's going to be a close, hairy decision, you could still win your bet, even if you don't get the nod on the money line. Maybe not a bad look.
Especially guys that are really good at the X's and O's, at how they believe the fight will play out, that aren't really market, price action guys, and like myself. I think those guys have a really good shot of beating that. And most of your viewers are definitely, I'm sure, hardcore fans that know the sport better than I do at that level, where they could probably gain value from it. So yeah, I dabble in that, my man, for sure.
Good luck. Yeah, I might take a little sprinkle on that myself this weekend, just to kind of back up the money line play. All right, next up, Ariane Lipski takes on Melissa Gatto, an absolute showcase spot here for these two ladies. Lipski coming off a huge win in her last fight, finally showing off some improvements, getting back on track against JJ Aldrich. Fantastic look for her, but I can't get over the knockout losses, Gianni. Even though she's improving, she's getting better. She's been knocked out 4 times. And in women's MMA, that's maybe the biggest red flag I've ever seen. You're not supposed to be getting knocked out in women's MMA the amount of times that she has been. And on top of that, it's people like Antonina Shevchenko, who's just kind of middle of the road in the UFC. Montana De La Rosa, somebody who has been kind of fighting to keep her slot at the UFC level. These are rough spots to be getting knocked out in. Melissa Gatto is her opponent, somebody who I identified from a mile away as somebody who I was going to just run to the window with time after time after time. And I've done that 3 times straight. We're 2-1. She didn't get the nod against Tracy Cortez, but you could argue that fight was a whole lot closer than the judges scored it, in my opinion. It was very competitive, good back and forth. She's big, she's strong, she kicks like a mule. She's got 2 stoppage finishes so far in the UFC. The only person she couldn't get was Tracy Cortez, who frankly just was able to out-wrestle her. We know wrestling beats jiu-jitsu sometimes at the high level when their defense is on point. I've got her here against Ariane Lipski, and I like her a lot, Gianni. What do you make of this fight?
It's the hardest thing to do, but this is the spot that if you're going to get value on a fighter like Gatto is when you're going to get it. And based on the line movement, that's what it reflects. She opens minus 150. She's up over that 220, 230 range where the implied win probability is increased by 10%. And the reason for that is obvious. She's coming in off a loss. And it's the hardest thing to do. It's easy to bet fighters or teams coming off games and fights where they look great. Like someone coming in off back-to-back first round finishes or performance bonuses. We're all hyped to see them. Teams that score 40 points back-to-back weeks and cover the spread. We're all excited to watch them play and bet them. But what we have to realize is, as far as the market is concerned, that's already priced in. Like that's already baked into the cake. Like you're only going to take advantage of that when the narrative is different. Like now, like when someone's coming in off 3 straight performance bonuses, of course the price is going to be inflated. It should be inflated. That's when you don't want to back them. That's the hardest time not to. It's almost like when all the hype is, everyone buying Bitcoin at 60,000 because it's going to go to the moon, to the moon, to the moon, to the moon. Not, after seeing a line go straight up like that. It's hard to be contrarian when you're seeing success. But the problem is markets are forward looking, not backwards looking. Like if you're thinking you're going to bet on news, it's too late. It's already factored into the price. Like the only way you're going to get value from weather in ball sports is before the line's adjusted. Once they move it down 4 points because it's pouring rain, it's baked into the cake. Everyone knows it's raining. Doesn't matter at all. That's the problem that I think now with Gatto is that value's gone. She's going to win this fight. And I think instead that her to do it inside the distance is probably where you want to look, because it's another spot where I think the narrative and the history of women's MMA going the decisions forces books to add a premium, almost like for a decade, 2 decades, 80s, 90s, when bettors weren't as sophisticated. They knew that bookmakers always would add 1, 2, 3 points to Monday Night Football totals because they knew they were going to get over money. So sure, some sharp bettors were going to get the best of it betting the under, but the public money outweighs sharp money by 90-1 in the NFL. So they're not concerned at all in certain big marquee games like that. So I think that's where you got to factor that in. And I think here, it's inflated towards over, where in women's flyweights, it's a coin flip. Since the division started 7 years ago, 48.8% of the time, the fight finishes inside the distance. Now, some statistician's going to say, Ace, you're skewing the numbers. In that first year, there were so few fights. Take that out of the equation. Okay, let's take that out of the equation. It's still well over 40% of the fights finish inside the distance. It's not as if it's like 10, 15, 20%. 4 out of 10 times. And you have a matchup where guys like yourself who know the X's and O's better than I do agree that there are paths to finishing here. So I think that's the obvious bet to place. And you want to play psychic, have at it with Gatto to get it done inside the distance. I'm not anyone that you tell anyone how to, spend their money. But I think that's the way to play it, brother.
Okay. I love it. I'm already heavily invested on the Gatto side. And
you're catching her at the perfect spot. If she was 3-0, if she was coming into this fight 3-0, this line would be minus 350. It would close closer to that 400 range, probably.
I agree. Absolutely agree. I think that loss to Cortez is giving us some kind of value here. And believe it or not, favorites have value too. Everyone always thinks when I say value, it's because I'm looking at dogs. Favorite lines have value too, baby.
The most misused word in the sports betting vocabulary.
I try to preach, Gianni. I really try to teach, but they all think that value just means plus, and I'll keep trying. Next up, we got Max Griffin and Michael Morales. It's another really intriguing spot for me. Max Griffin is a guy who I feel like has kind of flown a little too close to the sun recently, Gianni. His last 2 fights, split over Neil Magny. Love it. That's a great split decision loss. Neil Magny's a tough SOB. That's a good proven, not proven. That's a place where I can give you a nod at a split and go, I respect the fact that you took it that close. But then the split loss to Tim Means. I think Tim Means is just on free fall right now. The guy is so close to retirement. It's not a good look. Fighting that closely with that caliber fighter, I can't like that very much. So back-to-back splits, one I can find positives in, one I find negatives in. He was on a really rough run not too long ago, going on like a 2-5, 2-6 run in the UFC. And this 3-4-1 run that he's on right now at 37, 38 years old, I just think it can't last forever. He's solid, skilled everywhere, hits hard, wrestles well. But I think this is a changing of the guard spot. We've got a much younger Michael Morales who's going to be taller, longer. He got a bonus in his last fight, so he's going to get that life-changing money that'll allow him to train full-time. Those are when you see these kids take the biggest leaps as far as what they're capable of in their fighting experience goes. I like the favorite in this spot. I'm a little too scared to lay this price tag, but I do think Michael Morales is probably going to pass this test.
Yeah, I'm hoping this line drops, because I like the Morales side as well. And you're seeing Griffin come in, having won 4 of his last 5, and you see that record, you see the experience, you see the strength of schedule. And I think that the live dog seems to get attached to it. I don't see it. I think this is a good spot for Morales. Bottom line is this: under 25 years old is the highest age win rate in the UFC. And it makes sense because that's when you're going to improve the most. Like a kid that gets in there at 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, in those years, they are improving leaps and bounds. Like their bodies are still changing. They're absorbing so much from fight to fight. The trajectory of improvement, you have to weigh that in. And I think that's where the changing of the guard moniker fits perfectly here. You're getting that. You have a 24-year-old in Morales, 13 years younger. I don't need to tell you, those fighters that are about 13 years older, they've won 7 out of 10 times, 6 out of 10 times. They get it done inside the distance as well. And with Max Griffin having been below that average as far as the weight class goes, I think he's 29% finishing rate. There may be some value in Morales inside the distance. Again, I don't like to play psychic, but I agree with you. I like the Morales side. I like how he outperformed the market on the Contender Series as an underdog. And then when he was favored, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. Got the job done. He's a lot younger here. He's going to have the reach advantage. He's got the confidence, like you said, and he's got the 14-0 undefeated confidence, which you can't quantify as a sports bettor. But rest assured, it means something because once you have the skill set, it's a mental game, like in life and anything else, like sports betting as well. Once you have an edge, then it's fighting your own demons. Well, it's the same for these guys. Like you could only learn so much, and then it's just repetition and making it become muscle memory. And I think someone Morales, you're just going to keep seeing improvements because that isn't the case. He's still learning. I think it's a spot where laying chalk actually makes sense. And you're getting a stud that you're backing a good. I don't mean to compare it like to horses, but you're. It's like the breeding looks like it's the real
blue
deal.
Chip prospect.
Yes.
I love it. All right, glad to see we agree on that one. I haven't bet anything on that one yet, but I'm with you. Might parlay Morales, might play him inside the distance, like you mentioned. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record. That could be a way to look. We'll see. We got 2 more fights left, everybody. Thank you all for running with us here on this show. And thank you again, Gianni, for joining us and spending your time and giving us the info. Damir Ismagulov taking on Grant Dawson. One of the most contested fights of the week on MMA Twitter. Everyone's got a side, back and forth. This is the Civil War spot here this weekend, Gianni. We've got a bunch of people backing Damir Ismagulov as a short favorite. Grant Dawson got the money early on as an underdog. That move out to ATT, he's really trying hard to prove that was the right thing to do. And Damir is the biggest thing for me, which is why I have not made a move yet on this spot, is that Damir retired due to health reasons not 6 months ago, Gianni. And now he's turning around and coming back and accepting a fight again. He's incredibly talented, incredibly skilled. He just got done facing Guram and Arman Tsarukyan and Rafael Alves. I mean, he's fought a solid, hard level of competition in the UFC, and he's performed amazingly well that entire time. But coming off a loss, he says, something's wrong with my body. I can't keep doing this. I got to hang it up. I don't know what happened between then and now, but I have huge questions as to why 6 months ago he said he wasn't fit to compete. So if anything, I have to look at the Grant Dawson side here in this spot. Not to mention the skill sets, not to mention the age, nothing else, simply because this guy was ready to hang it up 6 months ago. I automatically lean over to the Grant Dawson side, and it looks like that got the plus money early on. I've kind of missed my opportunity. I'm not sure what to do at the minus 110 spot here. Maybe you can help me out. What do you see here, Gianni?
Please hear me out. I don't want your viewers to say this guy's freaking nuts, but it works for me. This is what
they say it every week.
Okay, this is what works for me. My initial read on this fight is exactly what you touched on. Ismagulov opens a minus 175 favorite. This is obviously a tough fight. It's a dog or pass situation, right? In fact, this is going to be the absolute first time we're able to get Grant Dawson as a favorite. Not only was he favored in the Contender Series, but he's closed an average of minus 226, expected to win 70% of his fights. He's gone out there and got the job done. So seeing him in the dog role obviously is attractive. And to sharp bettors whose only job is to bet inefficient numbers and get ahead of the market, knowing rinse and repeat, when the dust settles, they'll be profitable. By betting the dog when it opened, they made a great bet because of where the line's going to close. But I'd caution that move now, especially because the fact Ismagulov open that high is why is where the sirens in my world go off. I follow price action. I trade in stocks off price action. I don't watch CNBC. I don't watch the news. I don't give a shit. I trade off the charts. I could care less. I know that's just for emotions. That's to make you emotional. And that's what happened to Ismagulov. He lost. He got emotional. That's all that happened. We saw it happen with Kazma when he got sick. He's like, I'm done. I'm done. Like, people get, especially when you're like an alpha, and these guys are. They're very emotional dudes, man. Like, you don't get to that level by being a normal human being. You don't get there like that. So you got to give them some leeway as far as that kind of, and not like, oh, his mind ain't in it. That's who he is. This guy's a fighter, dude. And in fact, he's a 24-2 fighter who's won 92% of his fights and 5 of.
Oh no! We're on the good stuff at the end of the show. Let's hope Gianni's got another cell phone hidden in his pocket. He said he's got backups on backups. Those of you who just joined the show or have just hanged out with us for the last couple of breakdowns, Gianni's doing this from his car because his whole entire block has lost internet connection. The guy is so dedicated to doing this with us and helping us out that he jumped on a cell phone in his car and has done this entire show from that position. We already had one phone die on us, and he switched to a backup phone to keep the show rolling, and that's not gonna stop him. He's back, baby. Let's go.
Things were overheat. They just shut down, baby. Us out here, but don't worry about it. So that's why I'm telling you, be cautious. It's Ismagulov or nothing at all.
Okay.
There's a reason he was a 2-1 favorite. You said a loss with that against a Grant Dawson who's never been a dog. It's long enough that I've honed intuition. I don't know why it's there, what it serves me well. So I conscious. You've seen it before. Something along those lines, and alarm bell rang off when that line moved. I talk about I study price action. This is every opener to close. I think matter. I study when I have nothing else to do. So this seems Ismagulov's the right side, dude. But with that move, not taking anything. Grant Dawson at that nice plus bet. But right now, I just don't think he all. Days ago, my alarms.
Okay. All right. We're looking at fading the market here. Ismagulov is the side. You love to hear it. You may have just talked me into it, Gianni. I might be backing up the truck there with you because I was tempted and hesitated, and the line movement might have scared me off a bit, but I like everything that you're saying here. Let's get to this main event breakdown so we can get this guy out of his hot car, the poor man. Sean Strickland, Abus Magomedov. I got some nice CLV in my pocket right now. I got Abus at plus 150. I know it's a bit of a leap of faith. I know Sean Strickland is proven at this level, but Abus being rushed in there from a round one quick KO to take on a guy who's setting records for damage absorption in the UFC right now. I kind of feel like he's the side that the UFC is pushing. They want him to get the win here. He's explosive. He's powerful. And Sean does nothing but walk forward and rely on that durability. It's going to give out again eventually. So I've got Abus here. I'm thinking Abus by KO. I actually don't mind the under because if Abus is a fraud, this would be the kind of guy that Sean Strickland would show the door the deeper this fight gets. So I don't even mind a violence look in this spot, but I'm riding the bus here, Gianni. What do you like?
In case it's forgive me, all you guys and everything. Real quickly, podcast. Here's the problem I have with speculating because everything in his record, meaning the impressive names or done much since fighting Abu. Everything he's supposed to be. I think he's giving you like on investment. That be honest with you, where with Strickland, dude, you look at his strength of schedule. His wins come against schedule. Doesn't get better than that. 7, and as a favorite, I think he's only lost 3 as a favorite with investment. So that's the only thing I'm saying. You know why he's favored. It's being the favorite for everything I just. Abu, you are speculating a bit. I'd like more plus money against. I haven't bet this fight. Again, I need to lay close to 2-1, like strong than that. But that's the only the dog in this spot. We and because of all the crazy stuff you touched on, like under less price than he would, it's more of a normal dude. You know what I mean? And those questions, is his head in it? I mean, is he game plan? I think that narrative may where he's a little under. If the spot doesn't fit and the X's and O's, you probably don't want to be laying 170. Abu is probably the side, but that's the only problem on Abu to speculate for that low of plus money.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And that's the sharp action report here for UFC Vegas 76. There's some good nuggets in there for all you people. Gianni, we absolutely appreciate the effort you put in to keeping this show rolling. Thank you so much for joining us. If there's anything you want to shout out for the people, let us know where they can find you up next or what you got coming.
Freak_gambler. And of course, the UFC fight on the line. The Dana White's Contender Series in years. We'll see in the years ahead what's going on back here, and I appreciate all you guys love what I'm a huge fan, and thanks for having me, brother. Cash them, don't trash them. Whether you fight, but I just hope you guys make money, man. That's all I care about. Honored, man. I'm not on that side. Thank you.
Same here, Gianni, man. Let's kick some serious ass this weekend. Thank you again for the time, folks. Hit the like button. I will be doing the Undefeated post weigh-in show this afternoon, and I'm seeing some of the people here in the chat. Guys, I want to apologize real quick. Gianni went through 3 different devices to stay on the show with us. So I know the microphone was cutting in and out a little bit at the end of that show right there, at the end of that segment with Gianni. But seriously, we got the entire show through and his phone died on him. He has no internet. He was an absolute trooper to stick with us and still do the show and not cancel on us last minute because his entire neighborhood lost internet. He did it from his phone in his car. So we got to cut him, a little bit of a break. I hope you guys can, understand. I do apologize for the main event being the one where we had a little bit of audio concerns. But the rest of the card, if you guys want to go back, listen to the other stuff. The rest of the card is all crisp, clean, and clear. It was just that one fight that we kind of messed up on there. So we definitely still owe the guy some gratitude for tuning in and doing that for us either way. Thank you all so much for joining me here on the show. Hit the like button on your way out if you haven't already done that. And like I said, Undefeated post weigh-in show coming this afternoon. I will see you guys very shortly for that. Good luck this weekend. Kick some ass. Let's roll.